Okay. So good morning once again, everybody. Welcome to the Stock Exchange Listing Program Information Session brought to you by Faith Foundation in partnership with the Nigerian Exchange Group, Broad Board, and Meristem. So to start this off, we'll be having Akinwande Akinsulere, who is the head scale at Faith Foundation, and he'll be welcoming and introducing us to this program and also give us a little bit of background as to what brought about this. So welcome everyone once again, and welcome Akinwande.
Okay, good morning everyone. We are so excited to have you this morning to join us for the Stock Exchange Listing Program, but the information session. We're really so excited by the turnout of the number of entrepreneurs we have here currently. We also have a number of people that have also indicated interest, either who will be joining later or who will also be requesting for maybe opportunity to access the video. So I hope you can all hear me. So if you're finding it difficult to connect, you probably need to check your device. Shesi, please just try to see those that are raising their hands. You can send them a direct message so that you can engage them. Oh, thank you, Iro Hadumba. Oh, thank you, Haruna. Okay, thank you for confirming that you can hear me. Going virtual and running a virtual event, you have to ensure that everyone on the event are all carried along, and ensure you're not just speaking to the air. So we are so excited to welcome you for this session. And on this session, we are actually introducing you to a new program that we just added at Faith Foundation. And I'm going to be sharing about the program. I have a presentation here. Shesi, please, if you wouldn't mind, let me share my screen so that I can run our audience through what we have in stock today. We have a very short time to spend together, and we're going to be making the most of this time. And we are really looking forward to a great session with you. So once again, we are so happy to have every one of you join us. Thank you for taking out time. And this is the Stock Exchange Listing Program, the information session, as I mentioned. And today, just running you through the agenda very quickly, we're going to talk about Faith Foundation, who has called this meeting and this engagement. Then talk about the Stock Exchange Listing Program that we are newly introducing. Then we're going to have a presentation from the Nigerian Exchange Group, and a very short one from Meristem. Then we're going to take questions and answers. Then we're going to have the sessions closed out. So please, again, we'll employ you to use the chat session. If you have questions, if you have comments, please use the chat session. So you can send a direct message to Olushesi, who is on the call. It will pick your message and respond to whatever it is that you might need. And, so that you can have a very great time. The reason why you cannot unmute yourself is so that we can have a well-coordinated time. And, the recording will also be good for those that will be watching as well. Okay, so a warm welcome to the Faith Foundation family. And I also have on the call representative, from our partner organization for this program. I have Mr. Larry Odufua, who is, the team lead for primary listing at the Nigerian Exchange Group. Formerly known as the Nigeria Stock Exchange, is on this call, and he's also going to be having his presentation in a very short while. I also have on this session, Sheil Lee Joffrey, the lead capital markets and regulatory compliance for Meristem Securities and Investment. I also have David Aduz, an investment banking associate with Meristem, who is on this call. And the person you've been hearing speak to you, it's Olushesi Oluyide, who is a Scale Up Lab associate. You're going to be seeing more of him, all through this program. And you also have Shemilori on the call as well. So just very quickly about Faith Foundation. I'm so excited. I can see some of our, alumni on the call already who are, part of this. who have gone through our program. So this is not new to them. They can even tell you about faith. But for those that are joining us for the very first time, you probably just know about faith from afar, but it's an opportunity for you to really get to know about faith. So Faith Foundation was founded in year 2000 by Mr. Fola Adeola. Yes, the same Mr. Fola Adeola, the founder and pioneer managing director, chief executive officer for GT Bank. He was the one that pioneered, that founded Faith in year 2000. And the whole idea behind him founding Faith was that as a banker, whenever he advertised role, for new hires in their bank at that time, they have several thousands of young graduates competing to fill limited role. So imagine having, over 5,000 people try to fill role, for 10 slots. And this was something that was bothersome for him. And he felt, instead of just having this bunch of energetic young people, roaming without putting this energy to work, why not create an opportunity for them to develop the capacity that they need and also get the support that they require in order to start their own thing, to start their business. And that was what led to the birth of Faith Foundation, which is a knowledge platform enabled by a strong volunteering model. So we leverage faculty, advisors, mentors, and we create content, that are also provided by our expert people, bringing all of this together to provide that support that businesses need that individuals need in order to start their business. And as they start the business can also grow and expand. And our model of operation is actually largely funding and technical support based, both from local and international partners. So we have some international partners that are committed to this course who provide regular funding for various programs. So that's why for a number of our programs at Faith Foundation, they are free for the participants because they were paid for by these international partners. And we also enjoy technical support both for ourselves as an organization and for our entrepreneurs from these partners. So that's the way we've been operating at Faith Foundation. And last year we celebrated our 20th anniversary. We marked our 20th anniversary, even though COVID-19 couldn't allow us to have a physical session. But I mean, it's really exciting for us to say that today, Faith Foundation, it's over 20 years. By December this year, we're going to be celebrating our 21st year, as an organization. And our mission is very simple and precise: to foster wealth creation by promoting business and entrepreneurial development among Nigerians. So we are the catalyst for entrepreneurship, in Nigeria, and that reflects in everything that we do, in everything that we represent as an organization. And when you look at the slogan to the right side of your screen, it says start, grow, scale, and enable. And that's the summary of what we're about at Faith Foundation. We help entrepreneurs who are seeking to start their business, who just have an idea. We empower them with the capacity building, with, the idea incubation, support them to start, as you're going to see, more explicitly shortly. Then for those that have started, we help them to grow. And for those that are growing, we provide them the various support in terms of, in terms of consulting intervention, advisory intervention, mentorship, expert intervention, in order for them to be able to grow their business. And as the business begin to grow, we provide, accelerator support to ensure that those businesses are able to scale. Now, not just scaling in terms of, the volume of production operations, but also scaling geographically, and also getting the opportunity to also become among organizations that can last the test of time, like what we are presenting today. And the fourth thing is to enable. So the enabling support cuts across the various areas. So this is just the summary of what I'm capturing in our slogan. You can see that under the start, all the aspiring entrepreneurs will provide support to them: ideation, business incubation, enterprise training, helping them formalize their businesses. And when it comes to growth strategy, financial literacy, mentoring, advisory consulting, prototype development, funding linkages, market linkages, alumni engagement. So when you come into Faith, we don't leave you on your own. There is a continuous engagement that happens. There's a continuous support that happens. Like all through the heat of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, we were providing continuous intervention support for our entrepreneurs in terms of seminar, in terms of funding linkages to government funds that were available, in terms of connecting them to partner funds. These are the things that, that we do at Faith, because our entrepreneurs are very, very important to us. And when it comes to scale, because what we are actually discussing today sits within the bucket of the scale, section of our programming. So here we look at businesses that are high potential, either that are already showing significant traction, or maybe because the idea is innovative and it's proven in the market. We support them by providing an acceleration program. So we have the Scale Up Lab accelerator programs that cuts across 4 key sectors. We have the agribusiness program, we have the health program, we have the creative industry, we have the education, and some of the participants here have gone through either the, agribusiness or the health program, as well. We provide targeted advisory, investor readiness and matching, and venture funding. And the new program that we're introducing, the stock market listing program, is sitting right within, those scale section. Then we have enable. This is where we, provide some ecosystem support in terms of research. We've done a number of research reports that you can find on the website. We have thought leadership articles that you can also find on our website. We host public, policy dialogue, quarterly. We engage in policy advocacy, connecting those that are key decision makers, within the ecosystem, in order to facilitate a more enabling environment for the entrepreneurs. Right. So as you can see, these are some of the key things that we intend to achieve for entrepreneurs that comes into this program. So for example, I'm just going to be speaking to those within scale, because that's where most of you on this call belong to. So we believe that you're already high potential business, and we can support you with revenue and cash flow growth. We can support you with, with fundraising. We can support you to enable you to hire more people in terms of your expansion. We can support you to get listed on the stock exchange. We can support you to have more impact, on your value chain and the GDP of your state and region at large. And that's what this whole program is focused on. So in terms of the available programs that we currently have at Faith Foundation, so perhaps some of you might also have some younger entrepreneurs that might need to get, some capacity building, some business education, and this will be very useful for them. For the start, we have the Aspiring Entrepreneurs Program. We have the digital version. We have the agribusiness version. We run it from time to time. It's supported by our partners. Then we have the Next Economy. We have the Orange Corners program supported by the Kingdom of Netherlands. Then for the growth, we have Emerging Entrepreneurs program. We have the Business Recovery program, financial literacy workshop. Then of course the alumni conference that we hold for our alumni. So this information you can find basically on our website. Then within the scale, I've talked about the accelerator program. And you can also see sitting right there, it's the new stock exchange listing program, which you are getting information on. Okay, then we have our data insights provided by our research team, then the policy dialogue series that we also do through the research team. So Faith is governed by a very strong board of directors. We are not just a non-for-profit that runs on its own without accountability. We have a very strong board, and you can see that our founder is the chairman of the board, Mr. Fola Abiola. You can see the caliber of people that we have on our board, Mr. Tokunbo Talabi, the Secretary to State Government of the State, Mr. Olushola Adeola, CEO of Designing Future, Ms. Bolaji Agbede, Group Head, Human Resource Access Bank, Mr. Inkosoni, the Chief Executive Africa Region for Standard Bank Group. We have Ms. Juliet, a human, the Country Manager Google. We have Mr. Seni Sulaiman, who until recently was the Vice President, Global Operations and Dela. the CEO, Environmental Accord Nigeria Limited, Mr. Ibrahim Salau. Mr. Ibrahim Salau happened to be the alumni representative on the board. Then we have our executive director herself, Mrs. Adenike Adeyemi. Unfortunately, she's not able to join this, this session this morning, but you're going to have an experience with her definitely. Then Mrs. Yinka Bella, partner, Banwo and Higodalo. Okay. So diving into the main program for this morning, I'm just going to do a very quick introduction of the program. Then I'm going to invite Mr. Larry Odufowa to do further presentation from his own hand. So I know that you might have some questions, you might have some comments. Please go ahead and use the chat session, to provide your comments, to provide whatever information you want to provide. We're going to take your questions, in a short while. So a very quick look at the whole objective or the whole drive for this program that we're doing today, or that we're introducing today. So over the last 20 years, Faith Foundation has been able to, supported several entrepreneurs. We've graduated over 6,000 entrepreneurs from our flagship program. We've been able to touch over 120, entrepreneurs across different states. And last year alone, we graduated from our flagship program meaning programs that run, for minimum of about 6 weeks. We were able to graduate over 600 entrepreneurs, thereabout, and we're able to touch over 120 entrepreneurs across, Nigeria with our seminars and programs and all that. So we've literally been impacting businesses that, from the stage of those that want to start, those that have idea and want to start, and they were able to start their business through our intervention, our incubation program, and also those that are growing their business. So for the last 20 years, we've been in that business of starting, helping businesses to start and to grow. And this year, we looked to say that, okay, we need to help businesses to get into that level, that beyond being tagged SME, a small, and medium enterprise, we need to also help business begin to evolve to the point where they become large corporation. And that's what brought about this whole new program. And we are running this program in partnership with the Nigerian Exchange Group, formerly the Nigerian Stock Exchange, as a lot of people used to know it, but they're now the Nigerian Exchange Group. So they are the one that will provide the board where these businesses are listed. Larry is going to provide additional information on how the stock exchange operates, right? But for a number of you on this call that might have been following, the trends in the exchange, in the stock exchange. For example, you perhaps even have, shares in some of the organizations listed, on the stock exchange. You have the Dangote Cement, the flour mills, all the large corporations, the PLC that some of you probably had even worked for, led at some time, right? So we want a situation where we can also support some of our businesses to get to attain this level, such that these businesses can go beyond just one generation, beyond the founder, to transit into the next generation. Because part of the major challenge that you see with Nigerian-owned businesses is that once the founder gets off the scene, the businesses begin to literally, go down. There are very few family-owned businesses that have been able to, survive multiple generations in Nigeria. I don't have to go into mentioning names of some of those major brands that we used to have, in the 90s, some in the 80s that no longer exist, right? But what we want is to be able to support businesses to be able to get past, these challenges, and that's the real objective, of all of this support and intervention. And the way the program has been structured, it's in such a way that, we work directly with the entrepreneurs, to attain that requirement that the exchange group requires. So the exchange group will not work with businesses. They will not work with entrepreneurs to get listed. They work with partners who will work with these entrepreneurs to get listed. And we are a partner with the Nigerian Exchange Group. We consolidated on our partnership last year, and hence we are launching this program. So we are going to be working with our entrepreneurs in order to fulfill the requirements to get listed. And we are not doing this alone. We are working with our legal partners, working with our financial advisor partners in order to support all of those businesses to get listed. So without delving into the initial details, I would like to invite Larry, if Larry can hear me. Hi, Larry, can you hear me? So if Larry
Yes, apologies, Akwande. I didn't realize I was muted. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, fantastic. So are you ready for us now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm just going to stop sharing and allow Larry to share. Larry is the team lead for primary listing at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. He's going to be providing more details about the program. And I'm going to come back to, show us how all of these things ties together. Larry, please, over to you. You can share your screen now.
Thank you, Akwande, and thank you for that introduction. I think you set the tone quite nicely, and I will just use the brief time I have to try and show the benefits that we have unpacked today for a number of this up-and-coming SMEs in tapping the capital market and what opportunities there for them. I'm sharing my screen. I trust you can all see it. I would permit me to stop my video just in case of quality. Okay. No need to introduce myself again. I work at the NGX, and I'm here to talk to you about the NGX value proposition to growth board companies. My presentation this morning will be brief. I think it's very important to start on why the capital market for SME, understanding what the SME ecosystem is like today, and why we believe the capital market will better serve their interest. Why it's important to also access the Nigerian capital market, things you should be considering before accessing the market. Some of you might be concerned around performance of the market to see value that comes from being listed. I will also share that. Then I'll go into the matter of the NGX Growth Board, which is the value proposition to growth companies, and other things like listing requirements, etc. So just a quick snapshot from the ecosystem of the SM ecosystem. The SM ecosystem remains one of the largest ecosystems, indeed, just not in Nigeria, but in Africa as a whole. According to MBS, the SME sector is made up of close to 42 million businesses broken across micro, small, and medium enterprises, though the bulk of them still sit in the informal space. Nevertheless, SME continues to be a significant driver and contributor to the Nigerian economy. As we've seen through COVID, the SME sector was the one that was largely impacted during the pandemic, and that's largely from her because it is a big employer of labor, and in terms of productivity, contributes close to almost 48% to Nigeria's GDP. Despite these numbers have actually been there for quite a number of years, and we haven't seen a lot of growth there. And some of the reasons that we haven't seen a lot of growth in the SME sector are because of certain things we have identified that we believe are significant threats to SME. Largely and most importantly is the issue of access to finance, which we'll talk about in detail throughout the presentation. But other things that are beginning to creep up, new developments such as insecurity, access to information, issue of multiple ease of doing business, government inconsistency in policies. We've seen a lot of business complain about the level of taxation, whether it's from federal to state to local. Of course, the impact of FX evaluation is largely felt on a lot of SME businesses, etc. So when we taking into talking specifically on access to finance and why that seems to be a big problem, we know that currently, if you look at this type of funding that is available to SMEs, in recent times that we begin to see a number of banks and other financial institutions begin to step up financing for SMEs. But however, we've also noted that the type of financing available for SMEs is also one of the reasons why they are not growing or is harming growth. There was a study done by the Oxford Economics which showed and this is even a global picture, in the sources of SME financing. And largely this is driven by bank loans, overdrafts, and other forms of short tenor facility, which yes are good for certain kinds of things like working capital, supporting the business day to day. But we've come to realize that a number of businesses use this type of funding to support expansion and growth, which is very detrimental to their health. And so what you will see on that slide is that the types of funding that should actually be supportive of business growth and expansion, such as debt and equity, continue to be a big issue. It's for SMEs. A lot of SMEs, the penetration for SMEs is quite low in the market, and we'll see that in the next slide. Sorry, it's just freezing for a second. Let me stop sharing now. Share. Okay, it's back up. This slide tries to just show SME penetration and also benchmark against other markets that we as the Nigerian Exchange typically benchmark ourselves with. And so if you look at the graph on the left, it talks about the key other markets like the London Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and as well as the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in South Africa. And if you look at it, compare it to, this represents good companies. And London Stock Exchange is over 1.3 billion pounds that has been raised by the capital market. There are over 900 companies on the London Stock Exchange AIM board. And even going downwards to GSE, which is about 50 companies, we can see that the Nigerian capital market has significantly lagged behind. Prior to now, we've only had about 9 or 10 listed companies and have not raised even $1 million. And so that tells me two things. Gives me two, beyond the performance, you should also look at it that one is there is opportunity for SMEs to come to the market. It's really about how can they navigate the rules and requirements for coming to the market. It also tells you that, and I'll show you in another slide, the Nigerian Exchange has, in terms of market cap, has raised over 5 trillion naira this year for companies and government. Market cap on the Nigerian Exchange currently stands about almost 40 trillion naira. And so it tells you that there is an opportunity for capital formation, and we will want to see more representation of SME companies in the market. So I think this slide, let's take it back one step to understand how we see the capital market, how funding happens in the capital market. And a lot of you entrepreneurs in the room can really relate to this. I mean, going from the point of creating a business from the ideation stage to securing a co-founder, most funding comes at the early stage from family and friends. And over time, once the company starts showing some level of growth, you see some interest from other VCs and PE firms who are looking at growth companies and begin to offer capital to some of the companies in return for equity. So a lot of these companies do a lot of seed funding rounds, which eventually evolves into having multiple rounds of whether it's Series A or Series B or up to E funding. Then as PE firms funding start begin to looking at exit from these businesses, and the businesses are also looking at further growth, or even from the core investor trying to dilute some of his ownership or trying to inject more capital, companies look into the public space. And we've, interestingly, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of SMEs go through this route. We've seen it, especially in the fintech space, where Nigeria is one of the leading markets for capital inflow into Nigeria. In the last 3 to 4 years, Nigeria has raised over $1 billion injection into SME companies. Like I said, and just even also looking at the global arena and also bringing it back home to the point I said about how SMEs evolve over time, raising money from the PE firm, then eventually, once they've reached a certain level of growth, their growth accelerates once they come to the capital market. And some of these companies you know well, Facebook, Amazon, PayPal, who have all gone to the capital markets, who have raised billions and billions of dollars. And if you look at their valuations now, some of these companies are even almost $1 trillion in value or even more. We can also relate it to Jumia, which was about 9-10 years old company, which was founded in Africa, across some various African companies, has raised, initially raised 326 million funding, and eventually listed on the New York Stock Exchange, raising additional $200 million. Jumia is valued over $3 billion now. And now we're beginning to see a good, and that's very good, because we're beginning to see some Nigerian tech companies who are beginning to take that interest as well. We've heard the Conga has mentioned in the news that it is going to secure a dual listing, both offshore and in Nigeria. InterSwitch is already tapping the Nigerian capital market. InterSwitch last year did a private placement. Visa injected, I think it was $250 million, which gave them a $1 billion valuation. InterSwitch has already accessed the Nigerian capital market by raising a 25 billion bond, and also looking at an equity listing very soon. We've also heard of Roku TV has mentioned that they're going to look at joint listing on the LSC, as well, and some other tech companies. And so it's really, the universe is open. The key thing is that as companies begin to size and get formal, they eventually go through the world of the capital market, and for a number of reasons, which we'll take into the next slide. So key things when we want to look at accessing the capital market. For me, I think yes, all rosy to come to the capital, but we've identified 8 pillars of things that should be driving why SMEs are looking to come to the market. Beyond the needed point of, the market gives you credibility and visibility, opportunity to raise capital. There are quite a number of things one should consider. So one is public listing provides a platform for sustainable organic and inorganic growth for companies. It also can, listing also ensures that the right corporate governance structures for sustainable businesses are put in place. One thing you would know very well is most listed companies, once you are listed, it puts in place a governance structure that ensures that the business can live beyond the years of the founders. Most companies are 100 years. I watch something on CNN all the time, which is the 100-year club, and you see how all these small companies, all these giants of today started as small companies, but they've gone through listing, and the business has continued to stay decades and beyond in fact, the family or even the generation. So it also helps that. It also supports what we call transgenerational transfer of wealth, where you can easily move wealth from the founder to the king through a public listing. Key also is that, like we showed on the other slide, valuation. Listing provides a means or a transparent means for determining the true value of a company. One of the things that I know SMEs have always complained from time to time, even while taking PE forms, PE money, is sometimes how to determine their true value, especially in the tech world, because these things now are proprietary, and it always having a fair value. How do you determine what is the value and actual money coming in? But listing, once you go through that, listing also helps to give a valuation basis for a company, because the market, of course, drives that. And over time, it helps with price discovery. It supports business continuity even after the death or exit of the founder, and it ensures that the company remains a going concern. We've seen that with a number of companies that have been listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange since inception in 1960 are still going on strong, even after the exit of the key person behind them. Another key thing to consider, which is also very important, is employee compensation. Nowadays, with what SMEs are trying to do, talent acquisition is a problem. SMEs cannot compete at the pay structures that most corporate or corporate institutions currently operate on. But there's a need to, most SMEs have imbibed technology in their business, and you really need, technology doesn't come cheap, even from personnel and all that. But listing also provides a way for owners, staff, to feel part of the business. And it also, of course, drives performance. Once owners, in the news recently, Boa Cement announced that, our staff did very well 2021 during the pandemic, and he made available over, I think, 3 billion naira as a share scheme for staff as a kind of compensation and reward, and that, of course, will drive performance. Boa made over $80 billion naira in profits year in year in a pandemic year when companies have dipped in terms of return. Boa continues to come, and trust me, even this share thing, he keeps doing it year in year, so it helps to drive performance, and that is one value one should also consider. And finally, democratize risk. The public listing provides opportunity for you to reduce that key. When we talk about key owner risk, behind the founder, there's a key risk. If the owner is either not there or something happens, publicly ensures that continuity of the business, ensures that even if the founder is not right there, the business can function and at its pace. In terms of, I'll just skip this because of time. Just let's look quickly at the market. After all this, what does that mean in terms of Naira and Kobo? What does that mean for growth for my company? Looking at the market, the NGX has continued to remain attractive in terms of returns to investors through the dividend yield and market valuation ratios. It will interest you to know that the NGX All Share Index, which is our index for monitoring the performance of the market, continues to outperform all its peers in Africa. In 2020 was a very interesting year. Last year, the NGX ASI was rated the number one performing in the exchange index across all the major indices that are being tracked by Bloomberg. And that is even higher than the S&P, the London Stock Exchange, etc., growing by as much as 50% market return. And that translated into our market capitalization, which, as you will see on the other slide too, NGX market capitalization grew from 25 trillion to close to 40 trillion as at the end of Q4 2020. Also, one thing you need to look at beyond just 1 year is the consistency over a 5-year period. Has this been happening consistently? And over the last 5 years, we have seen that across all our major indices that we track, the NGX, NSE 30, the main board, premium board, the growth has continued to remain consistent in terms of growth. And in terms of market capitalization, we've almost tripled, growing from 16 trillion to about 38 trillion, which for me, simply in this world, as an entrepreneur, this slide just tells me there is a value in listing. It ensures that market valuation supports my business growth, price increase the growth in share price for the company. In terms of capital raising, which is also very key, the need to raise additional capital for the business. Just quickly through this year to now, we have witnessed tremendous growth in the market. Though there was a slight decrease from 2019, which is understandable, but I will explain it. We were able to grow the market considerably. On the equity list and the equity space, we were able to grow by almost 1.5 trillion, largely driven by what we term supplementary listings or secondary offerings, which are listed companies who are coming up for follow-on capital. We did not see any primary listings, new injection, and that, of course, has its reason being as the market was showing some level of volatility. Primary issuers don't usually come to raise capital at that time because one, there's high volatility in the market. They're not sure that their IPO or offer for sale will be successful. So that was a bit muted. But we saw other things. We saw growth in private placements. We saw rights issues by existing founders, existing owners or shareholders injecting more capital into the business. And we saw a couple of M&As in the market. And the fixed income space was largely where the activity was more. And that usually happens when equity market is a bit, there is some volatility. We see a lot of issuers go into the fixed income space. Last year was a record year for corporates who raised over 250 billion. We raised about 2.7 trillion, largely driven by government. And these are some of the companies that we've seen. Some are first-time issuers. Last year, Lapo Microfinance, Living Microfinance raised about 6.2 billion. Intersuite, like I said, raised 23 billion, which was a new first-time issue. There was also a first-time issue on TLCell, which is a transport logistics business, who raised an infrastructure bond for 12 billion. Suno Insurance, which is a leading insurance company, niche insurance company, was able to do 3 billion, and etc. And the list is endless. And so straight into the group board value proposition. For what are we proposing to SMEs? Having said the tone, so what does the group board stand for? The group board is designed to encourage group-oriented companies with good corporate governance to list on the exchange. It aims to support companies with, we keep talking about high growth potential, companies that are showing good revenue growth, good trajectory, which will delight new investors on investing in these companies to seize the opportunity to come and raise long-term. Remember, I said long-term capital is essential for expansion and strategic growth. and of course to improve liquidity in their shares. In terms of liquidity, because of COVID, we had a lot of companies who came to raise liquidity so that they can remain a going concern, and that's what it helps. For us, the growth board is our way of elevating the Nigerian capital market. It ensures that we as NSC, beyond just supporting mature business and corporate, we can begin to support business at every life stage of every life, wherever they are in their life stage, and also across various sectors. I will go through requirements on the other slide because I have that there. It's the growth board is particularly perfect for new companies who don't have a track record. I mean, some people always say, if I come to the market, people need to know me. And that's largely because investors in Nigeria are usually looking for companies that have been over the years, consistency, they've been paying dividends, they're giving returns to investors. But the growth board has been specially designed that for companies that don't have a track record and with less stringent requirements, which I will talk about, they can use the opportunity to access the market. Quickly on the benefits of the growth board. The growth board creates and broadens and identifies investors. One of the values for the growth board is that you get a host of retail and institutional investors that come in. I mean, just think of it, a few days ago, MTN announced they were going to do an IPO, and I think they said they wanted over 2 million. This was going to be a retail IPO. They want about 2 million investors. So why do they want to do that? Because right now MTN has a number of institutional investors. So it allows, when you have retail investors, it allows to help you diversify investor base. And even if you look at it from the PE side, I mean, you bring in a PE into your business who takes about 25-30%. You might want to, I mean, diversify your investment so that you can retain control and influence. So listing also helps you do that as well. I've spoken about it provides evaluation and enhances liquidity by accessing new investors. It serves importantly as an exit option for core investors. One of the things that investors, like I said, if investors want to exit, how do you exit? At what price? There's always an issue of valuation, what price, and so coming through listing can also provide an exit option for a core investor, which could be a PE firm, it could be a VC firm, or it can even be a co-founder to exit and sell his shares to the public. It offers an avenue for raising flexible capital. It also provides global visibility for attracting international investors. The NGX is home to over 5 million investors, both local and domestic investors. Sorry, both international and domestic investors who are looking at opportunities across the globe to invest in. So it provides that visibility. Being listed provides visibility to global companies when you are a listed company. It ensures that you imbibe the right corporate governance structures that will help you to build sustainable business practices. It increases visibility for you. All listed companies are well known. It promotes their brand. It promotes cost. I mean, if a company is listed, it's easier for a customer to say, I will do business with that company, In terms of, and so those are benefits for you as an individual. For investors, like I said, they can begin to invest in companies with high growth potential. We've had cases where international investors are saying they want to invest in Nigeria, but they don't have good visibility of some of these SME companies, How can Nigerian Stock Exchange help? The growth board helps in that way as well. It also allows new startups, and companies within the growth sector to participate in the capital market, which was never there in the first place. A lot of businesses, I mean, the assumption was that you have to be an established business, but now we're writing rules to ensure that even a startup can come and list. It gives diversified investment options to both retail and institutional investors. On the eligibility criteria for listing, in one way to ensure that we're a bit flexible and to address needs of both companies, especially at the early stage, which is more of the entry stage, being a startup or, they're still quite small, to a growing SME. We decided to create two segments for the board. One is the entry and the other is the standard. And in that entry segment, we've also designed two routes. So you can go in either routes that you find so as to make it a lot easier. So in terms of which one, you can actually be a public company, a company an SME that is limited can go through what we call a conversion to PLC status, because once you're coming to the public market, you have to be a public company. So you have to be a public company. You must be in which one you have to have 2 years of operation. You have to have IFRS audited, and your audited financials must be in IFRS style, which is the going practice these days. We put in place a revenue order, and I'll explain. We have a revenue growth should be a minimum rate of 20% cumulative in the last 2 years. Now, why the revenue growth? Actually, remember I said that investors come to the market looking for good stocks to invest in that actually have the promise of high performance, good dividend payout, and that speaks to profitability. However, we know that good companies are investing a lot of their returns in their business growth. So investors are looking for these returns in terms of dividend. Good boss should not be attractive, but with that's why we've now put in a revenue metrics that says, okay, you know what, these companies are not yet mature enough, but it is a company you can hold as a store of value for the long term, because this is their revenue performance year in, year out. So that is why that hurdle was there. And if a company doesn't qualify for route 1, then you can as a route 2. So if a company doesn't have 2 years operation, but the company has like a core investor or a strong technical partner that already has 2 years track record, or even if it doesn't have, it can be a majority shareholder who is a high net worth individual or a director of a listed company. Just some way to show that there's a significant investment in this business. In both cases, company should, for the entry segment in general, you need a market capitalization of 50 million. And what we mean by market capitalization is the value of the company. So you need a market capitalization of 50 million naira to about 500 million naira. Require a minimum free float of 10% of issued. By free float, what we're saying by free float relates to shares liquidity. It promotes liquidity, basically the amount of shares that must be available to the market. So i.e., some investors that come to the market and own this company, they must be able to upload 10% of their shares to the public, so that the public, and that it's very important that is, like I said, it promotes liquidity and also supports price appreciation. A must is what we call a designated financial advisor. Each growth company must have a designated financial advisor, must have a minimum of 25 shareholders, or has a plan in place to put 25 shareholders during the listing journey. In terms of the standard segment, quite similar. The difference really is in terms of market capitalization, which is about 500 million to infinity. Minimum free float here is 15%, and the minimum shareholders is 51 shareholders. Oh, sorry. VAS, I'll just quickly go through VAS. Value-added services, and that is what Akinwande spoke to earlier, so I won't dwell too much on it. We are partners that are here to support companies to come and list. We help companies, all our VAS providers help companies to go through, help them with pre-listing diagnostics, helping them to even so in some, and also to help them retain their listing. So if you get listed, VAS helps you to remain a listed company and post-listing obligations. So for example, SME companies can say, you know what, I am small, I need a company secretariat. I don't have the resources for a company secretariat, but with a VS, this can be outsourced to a VS partner who can stand in as a company secretary for the company. And this happens even for main board, even higher board companies, just so that you reduce expenses or investment in personnel to the barest minimum. VS is literally on 5 pillars. We have what we call analyst coverage, which is really helping. We partner with independent research companies who help. Basically, they confer what we call sell-side coverage. They help improve visibility of listed companies. They help generate more interest of investors in the shares of these companies. Investor relations, quite important. One of the key things you would know very well if you talk about a Dangote, you talk about Dua, you know everything about Dangote. Why is that? Because they have a solid IR team driving information. Remember, bottom line, investors only invest in companies that they know about. So each company must be able to tell its story. It must be able to package itself for investors to drive investor interest. Now, we have professional companies investor relations companies that do this for companies, and so they are part of our BAS providers. Institutional services is a really big chunk. Most SMEs too require a lot of building their internal structures and practice and processes to ensure that they can go through listing. So institutional services, we partner with some companies that can help you design, document, and implement the appropriate business practices, procedures that can help position you into a global player, a world-class enterprise. Corporate access is also very interesting. There have been some, let me not start that way. Corporate access literally basically is helping you is literally driving information delivery. Investors, issuers want to know about who is buying their shares. They want to be able to monitor investor appetite in their shares. So by signing up to our corporate access, you are able to see activity regarding investors. And corporate governance, basically to ensure that we strengthen the corporate governance structures for listed companies, to ensure that you do the standard number of board meetings you have, ensure you have your annual general meeting, ensure that your financial reports are in line with what is approved global standard and they are filed appropriately and on time, ensure that communication to the public is done in a sustainable manner, etc. So there's so many, ensure that board members are well educated regarding ownership and also management. Governance is also about ensuring that management is different from ownership, those kind of things. So structurally, the NSC helps drive that. I will skip to listing requirements. This slide can also be shared for you. In terms of timelines, these are various timelines for raising funds. Once you have finalized your application, the longest is an IPO. We can get that approved now within 17 business days. The fee structure, which is also very critical, we've reduced our fee structure for the group board. If you compare it to our main board, it's significantly reduced. So on the entry side, we have what we call initial fees of 250K flat, and on the standard is 0.1% of value, which is even 50% discounted. And we have what we call annual listing fees of 200,000 for the entry. Interestingly, we are doing like a promo where for the first 24 months, which is 2020 to the end of 2021, the fees have also been discounted. Thank you. I can end here and probably take your questions. Thank you very much. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Larry, for the presentation. So very quickly, we'll just take just like a 3 minutes presentation, 3 to 5 minutes presentation from Shell. Then we're going to the question and answer session. Shell, he's the lead for everything investment relations and compliance at Meristem. Shell, lead your feed.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just okay, thank you. Very quickly, I think I should thank Larry first. He did a very has taken us through he has talked about the happenings at the exchange and the benefits you stand to gain if you bring your company to be listed on the floor of the exchange. So I'll quickly just run us through the listing process so that we'll be able to attend to questions that you may have. So this process will be starting from the point where an entity has decided that they would like to list. Now, our job as issuing house and designated advisor would be to professionally advise you on anything you may require as you've decided to embark on the listing journey. So basically, conversations will start at the point of us having a due diligence. As the DA, the designated advisor, we would literally coordinate the entire due diligence process. You can have a financial due diligence, legal due diligence. We would want to know the status of your company. Like Larry rightly mentioned, that for you to be listed, you need to be a public entity. So we would want to know the current status of the company. If you need to convert to a public company, we would like to go through your CAC documents because some of all those things will be required to be filed with the exchange and with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So we'll be filing documentations on your behalf at the Securities and Exchange Commission, because before your shares can be listed on the platform or any exchange as a public entity, you need to register those securities before they are listed. So from the point where you decide that you want to list your entity, all of these due diligence and preparations, just like when a bride is preparing for the wedding, you want to be sure that all of the things that you need for the wedding day is ready. That's kind of what we'll be doing. We'll check if this is okay, all the things we need for the filing to meet the regulatory requirements, if they are intact and all. And critical to your listing would be the valuation that will be conducted by us, because of course, before you could list, you're going to be listing at a particular price. You should know the worth of your company. You should know what price you would be going to the platform as. So a valuation exercise will be conducted by us, so that would enable us to come up with a pricing memorandum that will be filed with the regulators. That determines the price you're going to be listed at. As there are certain obligations expected from you as the business that is seeking to list, and certain obligations from us as your professional advisor. I'll briefly go through those obligations from you. I think very critical would be the documentations we'll be requesting from you. I've mentioned a few already. Another critical one would be your financials. Larry rightly mentioned that they would want to see operating track record for about 2 years. And in the case where it's a new business, there's certain requirements that the exchange has put in place to enable such entities to still go ahead with a listing. So those documentations, of course, would be from you. And your responsiveness is very critical. It helps with the timeline of whatever process we're embarking on. How fast you're able to get those information and documents across to us, and our workings around it and all of those. For obligations from us, I've mentioned before that we'll be conducting the valuation exercise. We'll be representing you at the face of the regulators. We'll be filing your documentations at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and also doing or filing at the exchange. So that's, of course, has taken me through 1, 2, 3 of the things that I've mentioned. Okay, sorry, on the second point, would require resolutions from the company. You have the board resolution, the shareholders resolution. That's technically authorizing you to go ahead to take that action. You have to always carry your shareholders along, and the board, of course, the decision has come from the board at inception. So in the case where you're having an initial public offering, we would have to go through items 5 and 6, which is the completion board meeting after we've obtained approvals from the regulators, and distribution and marketing strategy and all of that, because if you're selling yourself, you're coming to the public initially, you need to, be able to do short road shows, tell people about yourself. Nobody would be willing to buy if they don't know you. So all of the distribution and marketing comes under that aspect of distribution and marketing covers all of that. I'm trying to quickly run through it so that we don't take too much time. So for the process 5, 6, 7, you would have to undergo such processes when you're doing an initial public offering. But if we're going the route of just listing by introduction, which basically means we're introducing you to the market, you're not raising capital, isn't coming into your entity, you're just going to be listed on that platform for liquidity and all other benefits that Larry has mentioned in his presentation. So after all of this, the company will be required to sign off declaration of compliance. There are certain obligations that the exchange would expect from you after listing. So that's what we've categorized as post-listing requirements. Topmost would be transparency. I'm sure Larry mentioned it in his presentation also when he was talking about people knowing you, what you do, and all of those. So after you become a listed entity, there's a level of transparency that is expected from from your company. You've collected monies from people, or you've listed on a platform, and you expect people to come buy your shares and trade in your shares. So there's a level of knowing about your entity and the things that you're doing that they would want to be available to the company. So there's a responsibility on the company to be transparent and do some regulatory filings, monthly filings, quarterly filings, annual, and all of those. So after that, you eventually get to the point of the listing. After we've gotten all the approvals from the regulators and your primary regulator, then we get to the point of listing. It sounds very brief. It could take a while, especially in putting the documentation together. But for a company that's has been discussed at the growth stage, we expect that certain things are already in order, and that would aid the documentation process and make everything move speedily. I hope I was able to stay within the 3 minutes you gave me.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you.
Akinwande.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. That's fantastic. So very quickly at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to just move right straight into the questions and answer session. And I know that already we're getting some questions in the chat room. So what we are doing for you at Faith Foundation is to help you integrate all of these things. We understand that for a number of you, you would rather run away than get involved in all of these processes. By the time you look at what's going to be required of you, to get the legal advisors, to get the financial advisors, to get all of those put together, it's usually a very, very lofty and doubting task for a number of entrepreneurs. But what we've come to do in the stock market, in the stock exchange listing program, is to be that fulcrum that we guide you, provide the the orientation that you require, then provide the support that you need in meeting all of those corporate governance, compliance, regulatory compliance that you need in order to be able to successfully list on the on the growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Group. So everything that revolves around constituting the board, formalizing your PLC registration, all of those things are things that we are going to be providing support to you, on to ensure that you meet all of those requirements. So, and again, because of our breadth of partnership and, the caliber of people we have as part of our volunteers, we are able to help you get these things done at a very, very subsidized. I mean, some of them had no fee at all. Some of them at a very, very subsidized, amount. And that's where, we come in. So I'm going to just look through the questions. So please, perhaps you had a question that has been overtaken by, chats in the group. We'd like you to please ask your question again. But I'm just going to ask this question very quickly. One first question that I saw at the initial part, I think I'll just allow Larry to take that question. It's what's the difference between debt and loan? Someone asked that question. What's the difference between debt and loan? When you're making your presentation, you're talking about getting debt and getting loan, So Larry, you want to respond to that question?
Okay, I think, let me put it like this. Debt is a group name for both short and long-term debt. A loan is actually a debt because you're borrowing against the company, but it's just a 1-year type of instrument. Under debt, there are more classes of instruments under debt, which are things like commercial papers, which are also short-term, but they're also they're bringing you from money markets into the capital market, and go through things like longer-term types of debt, such as bonds, which could be anything between 3 to 10 years. In fact, some bonds are doing 30 years, but most corporate bonds in Nigeria are 10 years. So you're raising a 10. So whereas in terms of a loan, which let me try and put the difference here. If you take a loan, your payback period is usually a time loan, and you can also have a term loan, which is like 18 months. But a time loan initially is less than 1 year, and you borrow money at an interest rate that is based on market conditions and can fluctuate based on. So you can see that your bank can tell you, oh, this loan, we're repricing it from 22% to 25%. And so that's typically what a loan is. So it's short-term in nature. So short-term instruments should support short-term type of funding. So it's not every type of thing, every type of capital raise that requires you to get long-term funding. So for example, if you're buying inventory or supporting working capital, you're paying salaries, you can go and take it. You can go and take a loan. You know, there's short-term in there that are tied to various cash flows. But when you're doing things like opening a new store, buying new equipment, whereas the payback period can take 3 to 5 years, it's wrong to use short-term funding for that, because it puts unnecessary pressure on your funding, your cash flows, and puts an excessive strain on you. That's where the capital market comes in. We've seen companies, so I'll give you an example. TLCell raised 10 billion to buy new trucks. And these trucks have a lifespan, the payback period is 7 to 10 years. So they can able to spread their repayments over a long period of time. And also the incentive is, once you key into, usually longer term financing offer significant discounts on interest rates, and they're also fixed. So they're not influenced by volatility in market prices. So if you take, earlier this year, Bois Cement raised a bond, I think it was a 10-year bond for 9%. And now rates have gone up. The bond rates have gone up. Some bonds are going at 14, 15, but not near banking rate. But Bois has the confidence that he will pay 9% for the tenor of that bond. So those are the key differences between them. I hope that clarifies.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Larry. So I'm trying to look through to see what additional questions that we have. So I can see that Saidat is asking if a limited liability company can get listed. So because being listed on the board, means that you're now going to, be publicly trading, right? It means whatever thing that you're doing as an organization, you have to make the details, the information public, based on regulatory compliance. And also you're also positioning yourself to access public funds. That's the whole idea of going to the growth board. So you can't go to growth board as a limited liability company or just a company, guaranteed by, by trustees. You have to convert to a public limited liability company. So then someone asked if this is the last class. Okay, so what we're doing is providing information around this program, and we're going to reach out to every one of you based on the information you provided when you were registering for this session, and based on that we'll reach out to you, and when we have your commitment we can walk you through the entire requirements, and and hopefully we get your business listed on the growth board of the Nigeria Stock Exchange. And it's a function of your compliance, of how how interested you are, and how you're able to also follow through on the process. But we are here to provide all of the things that you need to make that happen. No, a startup that does not have any prior okay, so I'm going to also throw this to Larry to respond. Someone is asking that, can a startup join this board? So it's kind of tricky for an individual that is an high net worth individual who has some good records in the market, could probably sponsor or promote a startup that could potentially be listed. But there are some requirements that all of that needs to be met, and once those requirements are met, then that can happen. Larry, you want to shed more light on that?
So ideally, yes, what we've designed, like I said, we want to target the entire life stage. A startup can list. But also be mindful that where there is no historical review or historical records for the company, which investors want to know. Investors use your historical performances to kind of guess where this company is growing, the growth of the company, whether this company is actually attractive. Where that doesn't exist, investors need some of comfort. Now, especially in where we are, we've seen a lot of agri-tech, we've seen a lot of agri-businesses, we've seen a lot of tech companies that, start up, and in the next 18 months, they go rapid. And that's largely because maybe it's a payment company and they have a large payments company that has invested in them, So with investors will be more comfortable that, there is some level of promoters behind these companies. So a startup can actually list.
Okay, thank you, Larry. So it's about meeting all the requirements, particularly as it pertains to providing historical information. Okay, so entrepreneurs this is another set of questions. Entrepreneurs are usually weary of having their businesses taken over by investor. How is this fear addressed? Okay, Larry, you have to jump back on the mic.
Fantastic. In fact, I wanted to talk about that, but it would take like 5 minutes in my presentation. That perception is a myth, is a total myth. And I'll address it this way. The truth about it is, every form of capital you raise beyond just, in the equity space, whether you're coming in whether you're taking PE money or you are bringing in a family member or anything, or the public market, requires that you would lose some level of ownership. However, remember that, and in Nigeria that this is actually a problem. Remember that a number of global companies, entrepreneurs behind them don't own the companies 100%. Right? I am an Arsenal fan. I'm sorry I'm bringing football into this. Right? The majority owner of Arsenal at a point in time did not own more than 40% of the company. There were other investors that came in and they couldn't take control of the company because they didn't own the key ownership of the company. So you need to understand that, yes, that's why we said when you list, all you need to do is provide 10% or 15%, depending on the board that is open to the market. Typically, before an investor loses control, right, he has raised capital that diluted his ownership like 10 times. So imagine if you come to the capital market every year for the next 10 years, you are diluting ownership. But also many ways for investors to claw back. You remember, we said last year, I said that in the market last year, we had a number of rights issues. Why? A lot of insurance companies, because they need to bring in new investors because of their insurance recapitalization, decided to do rights issue, which is ensuring that the existing owners, right, even as they dilute their ownership, they're still ensuring that their controlling stake is there. So there are ways to ensure that against dilution, that you lose control. You don't really lose control. You might lose control in the same, which is very good for governance. So where you are the only decision maker, by bringing in a democratized process or bringing in new shareholders, all it ensures that is that you go through a a board meeting to make decisions and reduces the risk of taking decisions of significant influence, but you still control the company. And even big companies like Dangote, Dangote still controls his company. As much as he has listed, Dangote is still the largest shareholder in Dangote Cement and the other subsidiaries. So please, let's get that clear. You don't lose control. There are even other ways. I spoke about corporate access that speaks to how you can monitor investors. You can even monitor whether your co-board member is selling shares to an unknown party. So all it does is give you the information to take proactive steps. But really, you determine the level of control. If you want to own 60% of the company, if you want to own 30%, or you want to own some investors have co-owners where different blocks of investors that protect the same interest are on the same board. It's still the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Larry. Yeah, so a very quick question that I'm going to direct at Sharon or David. So can the business limit the number of shareholders who can buy after it is listed? Very quickly.
No, you really can limit the number of shareholders that are bought into your company. Remember, we have been mentioning that you're opening up yourself to the public. So people, and really, you shouldn't be too worried about that, because tradability would aid the price of the stock on the floor of the exchange. The more people trade your shares, the better your price can become. There's room for capital appreciation. So it shouldn't be a challenge. But to specifically answer your question, you cannot limit the number of shareholders that would buy your shares after you've been listed.
Okay, just a quick one in addition to that. So does listing by introduction follow the same process as listing for liquidity?
Okay, I'm not sure I quite understand what you mean by listing for liquidity, but when you're listed, your shares become accessible. So I'm assuming that the liquidity you're referring to is the accessibility to your shares. And if that is it, it's just the same thing. The I know I mentioned when I was speaking the listing by introduction or the initial public offering. And I mentioned that the difference in the two is the fact that at the initial public offering, you're actually raising capital before you are listed. But the listing by introduction, there's no capital injection involved at that point. You're just, we're introducing you to the public, and your shares would be listed on the platforms and becomes accessible for people to trade in.
Exactly. You've actually answered the question. So that's exactly what I think the person is trying to ask. Okay. Yes. So what if we don't have 20% year-on-year revenue growth over the last 2 years? Larry, you want to quickly respond to that?
Okay. That rule is actually not a deal breaker, and why I would say that is, when we drafted the Growth Board rules, which was about 2015, though it took a while to get it approved, remember that Nigeria was on a growth trajectory. And we understand the impact of, what do we call it, recession, etc. Of course, when a country has gone through 2 cycles of recession, it will also impact the growth of companies. However, remember I said that the revenue hurdle is actually, you have a profitability hurdle because investors want to be sure that if I buy these shares, I will earn dividend. Investors are not getting dividend from good companies. And the only way to assure that there is a future value in this company is growth metrics. And growth metrics could be financial, it could be customer, etc. A lot of fintechs that are listed, they are driven by revenue and other metrics. But it's not a deal breaker. But I mean, you and I know that if maybe you're not doing 20%, maybe you did 10%, and this year you did 5%. Each can be treated on a case-by-case basis. But there needs to be some level of revenue growth, not that a company is actually in decline. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So let me see. So the question around is business plan needed as part of documentation for listing? I mean, of course, any business that wants to, expand or grow, particularly at that level, needs to have a well-documented strategic plan, for growth. And of course, that's also where our own support also comes in, at Faith Foundation, helping you to walking you through how to develop that. Not just your business plan now, but essentially what's your growth plan? By the time you get the liquidity injection or you're able to access the funding from the growth board, what's your pathway to really expanding on that business? So it's very important. You need it for operating your business, and it's also required for listing. And does the support offered covered increasing capitalization's 50 million naira requirements? So the support that we offer, right, as an organization cuts across different spectrum. We provide capacity building support for entrepreneurs that want to grow their business. So if at the moment you don't have the valuation that could qualify you to access the growth board, we can provide some other interventions for you. You can, attend or participate in some of our other programs that will help you, accelerate your growth to be able to also hit that milestone. Then the conversation, can start. Thank you very much, Mr. Faluyi. So that's actually some compilation of questions from one of our course director, Mr. Sheo Faluyi. He's also the CEO of Raga Powers. Thank you for putting together those questions. I'm sure you're speaking the mind of entrepreneurs in your program. Thank you very much. So looking through, can we have an itemized point of action plan? Absolutely, absolutely. So after this session, like I said, we're going to reach out to every one of you. We already have your information. For those that the information you provided are not clear enough, we request that you provide additional information. Then we'll start engaging you based on your interest level. What we've done today is to introduce you to the whole overall process. And, the listing process could take, I don't want to be specific now. Let me allow Sheon and Larry to jump on this session. So Sheon, based on your experience of supporting businesses to get through this process, how long, does it take?
Larry mentioned in his presentation that about 17 days. I know that he has spoken from the perspective of the exchange, and that's very good. They are normally very responsive, as in my interactions with the exchange. In fact, less than that, you can even get an approval out from the exchange. But part of the requirements that we've mentioned also is the registration of your shares at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And you would note that when I know I went very fast through my presentation, but I mentioned responsiveness, from you, the entity that is seeking to be listed. It depends on how fast we're able to get information from you and quickly work around these things. But let's assume that, as we request for those information you supply and all, let's say, I would want to say give or take a month. So that would have obtained the approval from the Securities and Exchange Commission and would have gotten the necessary approval from the exchange.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. So just
If
to
I,
put
if I can add,
Larry.
if I can add, because this question is a very tricky question. The truth about it, and rightfully to what Sean said, it's also speed is key, and also determines where you are. While some companies can take quite a shorter period of time, I mean, Sean spoke about CAC, and that's also assuming, I mean, that's the CAC process, it can take a month. There are also other dependencies that the company has to say, am I there? So for example, is the company's financials ready? Are the company's financials in IFRS standard? I mean, if you employ an auditor today, it can take you 8 weeks to conclude your audited process. So the importance of that checklist is actually to, and the advisor will go through that. If you tick all those checklists, I mean, I was speaking from the point that if you meet all the requirements, my approval process will be 17 days. But let me add that, please don't look at, I don't want businesses to look at capital raise as the sole point of listing, because when you say that, it makes it look like you must get that money quickly as fast as possible, and that's not the problem. Because I don't look at listing as a sprint, it's a journey. You know, I would confidently say that, look, fastest I've seen is 3 months, you know, and there are also some delays that might come about, even in CAC that shouldn't take 1 month. We've experienced over 8 weeks delay. They were doing that whole conversion from manual to all that. All those things take time, you know. 4 to 6 months can be an average in factoring everyone's input, be it the DFA, all the things she needs to do, the NSC as well. So give or take 6 months.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry. I really like the 4 to 6 months, but our intention is not to drive people away, but there are other those requirements from different people, like Larry rightly mentioned. So that's why I mentioned that if everything is intact, then a month and all that. But considering all the other factors that Larry has mentioned, I think I'd rather stick to that 4 to 6 too.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Larry and Shell. So, I mean, eventually it boils down to, you know, all the documents that you have right now, your current structure at this time, and how responsive you are, you know, to providing the document and to also moving along with, you know, additional requirements as they come. So that's why it's very critical that once you know, part of the key requirements that we also put out for this is that willingness to, you know, to really go public and also to get listed on the exchange. So once that willingness is there on your part, and that will drive you to do all the things that you are expected to do at the time that you ought to do it. I'm trying to see. Okay, let me see, is there a special requirement for fintech? Oh, okay. So there is no specific exclusive requirement, as it were, you know, but once we, you know, we assess all the documents you have, your current structure, and, you know, we look at where you need specific intervention, you can also ride on it as any other person from any other sector, you know. So the stock market is like a leveler for every of the industries and sector. Okay, so as we begin to tie this up today, I really want to thank every one of you that are on this call. It's been an exciting and an interesting time, you know, having every one of you here. And I believe that you've been able to learn a lot from this session. You know, the whole idea is to be able to bring this information to you, to make you understand that, hey, as entrepreneurs that are working, you know, on your business every day, every night, you know, for some of you, you're probably not even taking vacation in years, you know, just putting your energy building the business. And for some of you, you're even worried about, you know, what succession planning will look like, in your business. For some of you, you even want to find a way to divest, take some money out of the business and just go and rest. You want to just step away and just have the business running without you. But, funding for expansion, funding to make this happen, funding to hire the best hands that you can hand over the business to, they've been like a restraint for you. We thought this would give you that opportunity to actually live, your dream life as an entrepreneur by connecting you, with the Nigeria Exchange Group Growth Board that's going to give you that opportunity. So we are really excited and we are really looking forward to working with you. So like I said, specifically, we're going to be reaching out to you. And in reaching out to you, we're going to be providing additional information, that you will need as far as, getting listed on the growth board is concerned. I would like to just invite you. So there is a program that we have at Faith Foundation, the Emerging Entrepreneurs Program, that is actually forthcoming. I'd like to invite you to be part of that program. Shemilore, can you please share the slide for the EEP? Are you able to do that? Share the flyer for the EEP for the class to see, or probably just drop it in the chat session for people to download from their hand. So the Imagine Entrepreneurs Program is actually focused on, businesses that are the growth stage, businesses that are looking to, thank you very much. So businesses that are at growth stage that are looking to really expand to scale their business. We mentioned that for, in response to a question that for some that currently they don't have that capacity, to go listed on the stock exchange now, we have an intervention for you that can help you build the capacity to get to the point where you can get listed. So this year edition is focused on strategizing for innovation, growth, and resilience. And I can also see some of the participants in, the EEP 27 cohort that is ongoing, in this session. So on this program, you learn things around your strategic growth planning, particularly for these tough times and beyond, understanding the disruptions in the business environment, revalidating your selling proposition, your operations is being re-engineered, and all the key things that you need to learn. And the beauty of this program lies in the quality of faculty, that we have. For the EEP 27 that, we're rounding up in next week, the course director is Mr. Shonfalui, who has been engaging in the chat session, providing, insight from entrepreneur session. Is the CEO of Uraga Powered Solution, one of the strategic subsidiary of the Honeywell Group. And of course, on the program, you also get the chance to interact with the chairman of Faith Foundation and the founder of, the founder and pioneer managing director of Guarantee Trust Bank, and some other, high-level, C-level, executives and entrepreneurs across. You can see these are the list of faculties in the current program that we're running, right now. You can see all their names and all the various organizations. So we invite you to apply for the new session that is kicking off in September, between September 6th and September 26th. Shemilore, please, you can drop the link for registration, in the chat session for those that might want to look up the website and also apply for that. So thank you very much, and a very big thank you to our partners on, the stock exchange listing program. Thank you very much, Larry Odofua of the Nigerian Exchange Group, for taking your time out to come and be a part of this today. We really appreciate you. Thank you, Shirley from Meristem and David Hadu from Meristem. Thank you very much for taking your time, to come have this session with us today. And I want to thank again, Mr. Shonfalui, and every one of you that you are on this call. We salute you. We understand, we acknowledge that you are doing everything possible, to build a very strong and a viable business. And that's why we are here to support you, to give you every support, every ounce of support, encouragement that you need to be able to make, this vision and this dream happen. So please feel free to reach out to us via our email, scaleuplab@faithfoundation.org. If you have more if you have more questions around the stock exchange listing program, we'll be happy to to take your questions. And we also have our numbers that you can reach directly. So thank you very much on behalf of Faith Foundation and the team. We are saying a very big thank you to you for joining us, and we're saying have a great day ahead. I'm Akiwande Akinsulire. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye, everyone.